Hey, we're back here on Tech Tuesday on Northwest Digital News. Welcome everyone to the broadcast. Harry Brelsford there, our tech expert on the left, Kevin Hunter and Kyle Torgerson here at the broadcast desk. Harry, you've been traveling all over the country. You got a lot of assignments coming up here down the road as well. Ingram Cloud coming up as an example, Channel Partners, Lenovo, many others. South by Southwest. Well, you were just at the IBM THINK event, and let's talk about that a little bit. Yeah, give us a little. Yeah, there you go. All right, so give us a little recap here on THINK, and then we'll get into some of the details.
Sure. So I've been in the IBM ecosystem for well over a decade, and there's a couple reasons for that. Well, first of all, let me tell you what their ecosystem means to me. It was Lotus Sphere back when we had Lotus. It's the traditional IBM conference, THINK, and some of its predecessors. And then probably most importantly, I've been involved with the IBM PartnerWorld. So IBM is very big on having service providers and partners and managed service providers, MSPs, help amplify their reach. Not just sales and marketing, but actually do the work, right?
Sure.
And make good coin. And here's why I stick with it, is that we're both from the Pacific Northwest, and in my humble opinion, IBM is first and foremost strongest overseas. I mean, they just do a fantastic business in Latin America, Asia, Europe, and so on. I mean, they've got that locked and
Agreed.
Well respected. The U.S., we grew up with IBM. We went through the IBM PC. We've seen IBM go out to the forest. We've seen them return from the forest. They've transitioned. And I got to tell you, the reason I go every year, especially from Seattle, is I come home and I tell everybody, guys, give them a second look, give them a fair shake. For example, IBM is still way ahead of everybody with analytics. Now they like to call it AI, artificial intelligence, but we would know it as Watson, right? IBM invested early in Watson, got a head start, and you just really need to take off those glasses and look anew at IBM. So does that help? That's the context. It's a 5-day conference, 20,000 people this year in San Francisco.
That's a big crowd. So let's talk about your meeting with Jamie Mendez.
Yep. So Jamie is an annual interview, and I tend to talk to her a couple of times a year. Let's call it quarterly. So she's the director of the IBM partner ecosystem. So she's an executive, and they're always doing something. And so this year, the conversation with Jamie, we had a couple conversations, but the 2 points I want to highlight is they have a marketing program for IBM partners, and they teamed up with a vendor called Seismic. And what that is, Kevin, is if you can imagine a publisher or a marketing agency that has a lot of content ready to go. And so a simple example would be maybe they have a booklet. Maybe they have something that you can take down to your printer in your local rural small town, and you could have it printed with your logo down in the bottom right. You ever seen those? You go to trade shows and there's those little books called, like, Virtual Machines for Dummies, and it's sponsored by IBM.
Yeah, exactly.
The logo's right down here. So they have a program for partners with ready-to-go marketing collateral that you and I wouldn't have the expertise to develop, wouldn't have the time to develop. And, the skin in the game for us is, you have to go get it printed, or maybe you have a super-duper color printer. So that's the marketing resources with the vendor called Seismic. The other thing I really, really liked was Jamie has spearheaded an effort to do a partner-to-partner marketplace. And what that means is, in the world of IBM, you may have domain expertise with Watson, okay? That's a big animal. But you have a client in agriculture or agra. I'm trying to find the right word. The big conglomerates that do agriculture, not the mom pa farms, but the big guys.
Sure.
And you're going to have to team with an IBM partner. You're going to have to team with an IBM partner who knows agriculture, big agra, because you know Watson, and you couldn't hope to know everything about every industry. Kevin, your past life in the automobile industry, that would be an example, right?
Exactly.
Take a Kevin Hunter with domain expertise, take a Harry Brelsford with machine learning and big data and artificial intelligence. Hey man, let's go to Detroit. Let's go get good business.
Exactly.
So that was Jamie. And Jamie's always a pleasure. I want to emphasize one more thing about Jamie and some of the others. When I have these conversations back in Seattle, had them just this last weekend when I got back, Jamie's a real person, right? It's just too easy to say IBM. No, that's not fair. These are real people inside IBM who are great people, and I'll leave that hanging out there.
Excellent. Well, let's visit about resellers. IBM has several marketing resources for resellers, and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So with the marketing resources, it could be a ready-to-go newsletter that you just kind of append and send. It could be a white paper. It could be different marketing assets ranging from artwork to video and so on. And again, that's where Jamie's putting all that into a bucket of a marketing resource center managed by Seismic. So quite frankly, a lot of times when I see vendors like IBM develop these marketing centers, it's almost it's overwhelming, and I mean that in a kind way. Here's what I found. In other worlds I live in, there was a single mom who ran a little business out of her home in I believe Wisconsin, and she went to partners and she said, "Hey, what if I charged you $1,000 a month to go to the resource center and get the marketing materials, customize it a little bit, take it to the printer, do all that, and then send it out for you?" And these partners said, "Sure," because they don't have time. Kevin, think of MSPs you and I know. They don't have time to do that. Realistically, they need someone on staff to do it.
Right.
And she has... my friend's name is Jennifer Fields, and she has now grown to a company with 6 employees just doing this, helping partners use existing marketing center resources. How cool is that?
Very cool.
Yep.
Let's shift gears just a little bit and visit about blockchain. This has actually been a big discussion of ours on many of our past shows as well. And so you had some interaction with the blockchain technology, or rather what IBM is doing with it and to lead in this category. So talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so simple example, this was a poster on the side of a building that I took with my phone. I was taking it through a window, so forgive the resolution. But the point is, this continues my example of agriculture, right? And a lot of people think of blockchain as banking, and they think of it as financial transactions and maybe shipping and so on. But this is a pillar conversation for IBM. This was a pillar conversation at IBM THINK. And this photo, a photo is worth 1,000 words, right? Because we can go on and on and on about it, and I'm not even qualified to go on and on and on about blockchain. But look at what the wording's saying down by me and you. Blockchain can bring trust and transparency from farm to fork. And what that means is trust would be that you have a public ledger in place, a single source of truth, and I guess transparency from the grower all the way down to retail, okay? And the grower maybe can get paid faster than they're used to in the traditional electronic data interchange format and other paradigms. But what I really like about blockchain is farm to fork in this sense. What if we have some bad avocados, right? Just imagine, what if, doggone it, what if we have some bad avocados? Kevin, we have to track where those avocados went and do a recall, right? And we've seen it, what was it, romaine lettuce in recent times?
Exactly.
And a lot of supply chains are not well equipped to do that. Okay, supply chains are still, in my humble opinion, thinking about electronic resource planning, ERP, and they tend to be accounting systems first, and then maybe a little CRM thrown on, and finally some inventory and some supply chain. I would offer blockchain turns that around, and I really look to blockchain in terms of quality control, and I look to it in terms of protecting the consumer, and then finally, because of the inherent efficiencies with a distributed supply chain tool that everybody agrees to use, there were conversations at IBM that maybe we can help food distribution. And food distribution is two topics. Number one, get food to places that are, that's always been an issue, right? That the USA, we have an abundance of food. Doggone it, if we could just get the food to Africa, right?
Sure.
So there's a food distribution issue. And I'll leave it at that. That's my take on blockchain.
I want to take you back to early December when we attended the event Interface up in Seattle, and pretty much everybody there. When I say everybody, I'm sure there were some that perhaps were hitting on a different topic, but the entire conversation and presentations that were being done there were entirely around security. How did IBM approach the security issue down there, and what were some of the conversations going on with regard to security at the IBM THINK?
Yeah. If you want to, thank you. Next slide, please, as they say. So again, this was a pillar conversation for the conference, and certainly IBM. And this is a photo of a lecture slide. And did you know? I always like to play "Did you know?" But IBM is the largest enterprise cybersecurity provider, and a lot of people don't realize that, right? IBM has a heck of a lot of employees, a heck of a lot of global reach. They take security seriously, they always have, and they're actually the largest enterprise cybersecurity provider, as it says. They lead in a dozen niches. They have 8,000 employees, and they tend to grow by acquisition, which I actually like about IBM, right? That you can have organic growth, which is what I did at SMB Nation, but boy howdy, there's a time and a place to go out and buy the technology and turn the power switch on Monday morning, and you're in that line of work. And IBM does that. So if you want to go to the next slide, I had an interview with Johan. Gentleman's name is Johan Arts. He's a vice president at IBM, so he's an executive. And what was interesting about his report card, what he wakes up thinking about in the morning, was from the IBM partner point of view. And what IBM has done is what I'm not seeing with other vendors. I mean, all vendors have a certification program. We've talked about it on this program. I remember last summer when I went to CompTIA in Washington, D.C., and they have the A+ and the S+ and the N+, and a shout out to them. They do a good job as an independent body. Vendors tend to have certification programs that are at the keystroke level. So I've mastered a word processor, okay, and I'm certified. What IBM is doing is they're backing up, and they're saying, let's have, it's not so much the keystrokes, but let's have a earned designation. Let's help people earn a title called a managed security service provider. And it's a term in our space. That means you have expertise in security. And we're going to give you some training. We're going to give you some guidance. We're going to give you some resources to become an MSSP. And again, that's an industry term. And Kevin, if you know, on this show, and when you and I have gotten together, you know, I never met logo wear I didn't like, right? I have a lot of vendor shirts.
Yes.
I've never had to buy a golf shirt, right? I'm looking over there. I think you and I joked up a little bit about Windows XP on one of the shows, and I had a Windows XP shirt.
Sure.
And I like logo wear. You know, how timely the Daytona 500 was just this last weekend. You talk about logo wear on those cars. There's that lives and breathes in the partner community. So imagine if you have a respected, earned title called MSSP with the backing of IBM. It helps, quite frankly, it helps your business development, right? That you can go in confidently to an enterprise. Again, let's go back to Detroit and the auto industry. And doggone it, you and I are going to walk in with confidence, and we're going to get that business. We're going to get that security business. So that's Johan Arts, who talked to me about defining the MSSP program, and super good guy. And again,
managed security service providers.
Yeah, MSSP, Managed Security Service Providers.
Exactly.
That's his baby. That's his baby.
Let's shift our conversation to the CEO of IBM, Ginni Rometty. She actually has a really interesting story in that, there's many cases where in today's world they bring in these CEOs from other organizations. Ginni's story is a little different in that she has essentially grown up in IBM. Her resume dates back to 1981 with the organization and now serving as the CEO. She had some conversations around IBM equality. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, before I get to that, what I want to share with you is that she's also been the CEO. I did a fact check last week, and I believe I read 2012. Now, let's put that in perspective. It's 2019. CEOs don't have long lives.
Generally.
In general.
Yes.
Yeah, in general. I mean, there's the founder of Amazon. I mean, there are exceptions, of course. But for her to be in her, well into her seventh year in a pretty rough and tumble world dominated by men, boy, howdy, she's a diplomat and a scholar and I'm assuming a lover of fine literature or something, because that really takes some skills to survive. What she's been able to do. And first of all, she's a smart cookie. I mean, when you hear her speak, Kevin, you know how you can go into a room or a meeting and in about just a minute or two, you can say, oh, that guy's smart, right? That guy at the end of the table, that's a smart guy. She's a smart lady and can talk the tech talk.
Yep.
But she also brought up some guests, an executive at Geico, and they played the famous Camel commercial that won the Super Bowl ratings. Mike, what day is it?
Yes.
And so we had a little fun with the camel and so on. So she's the real deal, and it does speak towards on the right side of our screen about IBM's messaging here about gender equality and business leadership. And again, people who've taken their eye off of IBM and modern times for whatever reason, right? We don't have an IBM PC, so for whatever reason, IBM's not top of mind. Kevin, they're doing some really cool stuff, and this is an example of women in technology. And I'll end on this. With respect to Ginni, is that I've gone to panels before where they have diversity panels and they have women in technology panels, and sometimes it's like, imagine a women in technology panel with more men than women. I have seen this on stage. IBM can honestly say they have women in technology. We saw Jamie Mendez earlier. We're looking at Ginni. God bless them. I mean, I'm just pro IBM. I am.
Well, what is a technology event without hackers? And Kyle, if you would bring up that picture, there you go. Talk about the hackers.
Yeah. So what they did is they had an evening reception, and they released a comic book. So I'm going to hold it up right here. There we
can
go.
see that.
And it's in the photo. And these are the hackers on an IBM team that's what they do. And they have hacker names like Sky and Cloud. And they are actually, if you could look closely, I'll do the best I can, guys, but that's actually the people in the photo. So they are in the comic book as superheroes.
Yes.
And they fight evil, and it's a really nice publishing genre because, as you know, gentlemen, I come from the publishing world of SMB Nation, right? So I was asking questions about why did they go with the cartoon look and feel, which I like, right? I think that's a great way to communicate a message. This is probably a 32-page book. It has some QR codes and some resources for you to go get more information. This is volume 1-1, and they have done just a really nice job. And as you can imagine, these are some pretty crazy people, right? Once we took the groupie photo and we're talking to them, you know, these are people that marched to a different drummer, right? People who didn't finish high school or quit college, or, you know, just that raw brilliance. And they have found a home inside of IBM. And Kevin, you would expect that. That's what I'm saying. And the old IBM was suit and tie, right? And to have IBM attract younger talent that's a little bit out there,
right?
And I'll tell you, these guys would have fit right in walking the streets of South of Market in San Francisco with all the startups, right? They all look like this. They all look like this in San Francisco.
Well, you know, you talk about Ginni Rometty and her influence in culture and gender equality in the organization. Maybe she's having some impact too, as far as the suit and tie type situation that you're talking about. Because I remember years ago, Guardian Industries, they're having a big corporate picture. They had all the plant managers, which was the highest level executive in each of the facilities around the United States and around the world, but they were taking a corporate picture, and they had 32 execs in the picture, as I recall, and in walked Bill Davidson, the CEO of the company, and he says he's not wearing a tie. And many in the room are. And somebody asked, you know, Mr. Davidson, would you like to wear, you know, get a tie? And he says, no, ties cut off the blood supply to the brain. You should have seen all those ties disappear quickly out of that room. So it's great to see. Top. Yeah, it starts at the top, exactly. And so I'm guessing the reason you don't see any ties in this picture may have something to do with Ginni at the top. And you have to give her a lot of credit with regard to IBM because, you know, as we have visited before, they went through some struggles and challenges there for a few years, and it's good to see a major organization like this bring back and reestablish their relevance in the market. And so, good things to see. Anything else that you want to share on the IBM THINK event?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I forgot one point on blockchain. I have a little side note, forgive me. Last week was quite hectic, but on blockchain and agriculture, what I wanted to talk about was in not only do we have improved and efficient distribution of food, but you also have less spoilage, right? Because that which we manage does better, right? It's just a truism. And so, you know, there were these statistics that 40% of the food is wasted in the supply chain. And you know, if we could just use math, which is basically what blockchain is at the end of the day, if we could use math, can you imagine if we could eliminate or reduce waste? I mean, Kevin, that's like having a lot more farms.
That's exactly this. That's exactly what it is. Reduce the losses, reduce the waste, and it totally changes what happens in the outcome. So it makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah, and hey, final comment before I think we both have to run and do our day jobs or the work in front of us, but IBM could not really talk about the Red Hat acquisition because that's still at a regulatory approval stage.
Sure.
Yeah, so they acknowledge that, yes, we're acquiring Red Hat, but with the government shutdown, this, that, and the other, the transaction has not been consummated. So it was a little awkward, right? Because I think a lot of people came to hear about how Red Hat's going to integrate, and they just, you know, they're in a silent period. They can't talk about it. I'll make that my final word, my friend.
Understood. Fair enough. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us here on Tech Tuesdays on Northwest Digital News. Harry Brelsford there, Kevin Hunter, and Kyle Torgerson making the tech here happen on the show. Thanks, everyone who joined us. Till next time, take care.
This concludes today's live programming on Northwest Digital News. Thanks for joining us for this special broadcast. Heard around the world in more than 70 countries on YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, Facebook, and Twitch TV. If you enjoyed a story or guest we had here on Northwest Digital News and would like to strut your stuff on the broadcast, email us today at wainfo2017@gmail.com or call or text 360-545-3501. We're always interested in unique stories, topics, and guests to share with our worldwide audience. Before you go, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and comment on the live stream. And for those of you who'd like to financially support the broadcast, you can do so at patreon.com/Northwest Digital News. We thank you for your patronage. On behalf of Chris Bornstead, Kyle Torgerson, Stephanie Hunter, and all the people that made this broadcast possible, I'm Kevin Hunter. Till next time, take care.